leaving the sinking ships with millions. See attached story, what a crime. CEOs who got out before crisis left with millions. It's Yahoo, AP Business writers Rachel Beck and Ellen Simon. With a Wall Street bailout looming, or maybe, that will almost certainly limit CEO pay. Just hang on for a second. You're going to love this. Some of the poster boys of the financial crisis have already fled the scene, taking millions of dollars in severance packages with them. Stanley O'Neill walked away from Merrill Lynch with a package now worth about $66 million. Less than a year later, the storied investment house was forced into a takeover by Bank of America. Ken Thompson was just ousted from Wachovia in June with a golden parachute now worth more than $5 million. Chuck Prince was forced out of Citigroup with a parting gift now valued at $16 million. These companies are in the tank, their stocks are worthless, and the CEOs skate with all this money. Here's one that just is absolutely mind-boggling.
Is this the guy who was only on the job 17 days?
That's it. Washington Mutual just hired a new, I'm sure, genius to be.
17 days.
And in 18 days, Washington Mutual, as I pointed out, has its assets seized by the FDIC and then sold. They turned around and sold J.P. Morgan Chase on Friday. The guy's on the job for 18 days. Ladies and gentlemen, he is due for his 18 days of service, and it is distinguished. I don't know, maybe he's 13. How many days did I say? 18? Do you get a gold watch for that? No, he gets $13.6 million. That's what he's guaranteed is $13.6 million. And the former CEO, who watched as their stock dropped from $40 or $50 a share down to $2 a share before it lost whatever value it had Friday and went to 16 cents a share.
I wish somebody paid me $13 million to not work.
Or no, to come in and screw something up.
And to suck for air. To run these companies into the ground. That's the fascinating part. Now, here's what you're being told. And I guarantee you right now that most of those Republicans on Capitol Hill thought this through because they know I have in hand this ridiculous bill. I told you first they sent a 3-page thing out. Paulson did. Now, Todd, I want you to look at this. I'm just leafing through this thing. War and peace is less complicated than this thing. This thing is a mess. Here, I'm going to toss it over to you. I want you to just glance through it and see if it makes any sense to you. There is enough jargon and gargonzola in that piece of legislation that you would have to have an astrophysics degree from MIT to be able to comprehend anything that's in that. Here we go again with the complicated, and we've got to keep them under. We got to keep these people in a mushroom-like state. I keep telling you. In the dark and under a lot of manure. We can't let them know what we're trying to do here. Now, let's talk about the CEO thing. You want to talk about a red herring. That's the thing that's got everybody frosted. All these CEOs and high executives making off with all this money. Now, as part of that deal, it says that their compensation would be limited. Let me tell you how they limited it. So, because they think we're stupid. They think we don't look into this stuff. That document would limit CEO pay to $500,000 for the failing companies. If, in fact, the overtaken company by the government, by you in effect, wants a tax deduction, they would limit the pay to the CEO for $500,000. But it's smoke and mirrors, you see, because they could still give the CEO $1 million or $10 million or $20 million or $10 million plus stock options. They could craft it any way they wanted to, the board of directors. And it's what's fast. You're the board of directors now, aren't you? I mean, think about this for a second. But they left this open-ended. If they pay the CEOs more than $500,000, they just won't get the tax deduction on the additional money. They will only get the tax deduction on the first $500,000. So I'm looking at this thing, but before I stumbled onto that, and I'm thinking, there's something smells here. There's a reason why all these guys in the House of Representatives, particularly Republicans, are saying, we can't support this. I don't care what Bush says. You know, he got us all into political trouble with the war. We're not going to let him do it to us again. Fool me once, you know, the whole shame on you thing. Now their political hides are at stake. Now let me tell you this. Here's what this thing gets more pristine in its ugliness. Excuse the contradiction of terms there. As each stone is unturned. Now, you ask yourself, everybody says if this thing passes the House, it's going to pass easy in the Senate. Why would that be? Why would one House pass it with ease and the other House reject it? Well, the answer is very simple. Because only 1/3 of the members of the Senate are up for re-election this year. They have 6-year terms. Steve and Lola were talking about term limits. I am absolutely convinced that term limits are necessary in this country. And so only 1/3 of the members of the Senate are up for re-election this year. Remember, Senator Byrd, he got re-elected 2 years ago. He's 92. He'll be 96 before he's up for re-election again. Doesn't work that way in Congress, you see, because they have to be re-elected every 2 years. They're all up for election every 2 years, and they get a 2-year term, and that's it. And so all of those guys have to go.
It takes them about 2 years to run a campaign.
That's the part that sucks. That's why we need term limits. Let me tell you this right now.
Okay, I was sworn in this morning. Let's get to work on the next time.
And that's why we've got a dysfunctional government. Now we've got Nancy Pelosi shooting her mouth off, and she got all the Republicans mad, and finally they said, you know something? We weren't happy with this thing from the beginning. We had doubts about it. We're going to vote against it because you're standing up there trying to turn this into a political issue. And I'm right with them. The hell with her. The hell with all of them. Let the free market play out. You want to be a socialist country? We'll be the Soviet Union. Let this thing play itself out. Is it going to hurt? Yeah, it's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt regardless.
Either way you do this, there's going to be pain. And there's no guarantee that this bailout's going to work. Now, the thing that drives me absolutely crazy here is the fact that they can't leave the politics out of it. For the good, common good of all of us, they couldn't get together and they couldn't come up with a bipartisan, no strings attached, apolitical resolution to this today. Instead, now the politics are in it. So now the thing gets voted down in the House. Now you've got all kind of corporations out there that cannot get their hands on the money they need to conduct business on a day-to-day basis. This is a catch-22. We can't win. As taxpayers, we're screwed. Either we bail them out and risk the possibility, if we don't, of going into a deep recession or possibly a depression and seeing unemployment rates at 12 to 15%. What do you do if you can't make your payroll? You've got to tell your employees to go home. And if you're not producing cars and people aren't buying cars, then the automobile industry can't prosper anyway, so they might as well lay their workers off. This is the situation. This is the trick here. But again, I want to say this. I applaud the Republicans in the House who said no to this damn thing because something in it smells. Clearly something smells in this. And to the credit of 94 Democrats, 94 of them said no. 132 Republicans said no. And they tried to fast-track this thing, as I said, with a 3-page quick slip job that they thought they were going to be able to run through because they think we're all asleep. And here it is a week later, now they draft this thing. Jeffers is still looking through it. He could have gone through the Encyclopedia Britannica quicker than he's going through that thing. Do you see anything that makes any sense to you in there?
No, not a thing.
I didn't think so. I didn't think you did.
But the good news is John McCain suspended his campaign and rushed to Washington 22 hours later.
Well, I'll get to the two guys running for president. Okay, but keep that in mind. Everybody in Congress is up for election this year. Every 2 years. That's why they're not going to be so fast to jump, because they've got to go back and explain to the constituents in their districts why they are voting for this thing